using an online system, right? And we need to make sure that everyone in this room knows about it, A, but B, is able to use it as effectively as possible, because I think the use of technology is going to be very useful for us moving forward, because the Master's Office has a lot of work that they do on a daily basis. So if this system can work and is rolled out throughout the country, it will save a lot of time. But the second layer as well is that obviously we need to start exploring if there are other compliance types of softwares that you can use as trust administrators to be able to get some of the more mundane work that bogs you down and takes too much time and is susceptible to mistakes, to look at systems that you can automate, and also see if you can find something that's cost effective in that regard. So these are some of the things that we'll be discussing today. But no, today is not about me. Today is about FIA. Today is about you as the attendees. It's quite a big number, so happy to see that. I think, Nomandla, please, oh, I see you're recording, perfect. But FIA, over to you.
Good morning, welcome everybody. Thanks for inviting me back. Yes, you're quite right. I always say to accountants, trust probably forms 10% of your business, but not 90% of your risk. And that is the scary bit that we educate trust service providers.
FIA, can you hear me? Looks like there's something wrong with your audio, FIA. Or is it me? Let me do this. Can anyone else hear me? So you can hear me clearly, but you can't hear FIA clearly. Is that correct? Oh, okay. I don't know. So FIA, would you be fine logging out and coming back on again? Let's try that. Yes, Hugo. I didn't want to say it myself. Apologies for that. One thing about technology is that sometimes it's not our friend. Thank you, Craig. We wanted to add some humor to start the session, because sometimes these things get a bit too serious. So I can see you appreciating the humorous side to it. But let's see if we can get FIA back on speaking. FIA, you back?
I'm back. Please tell me you can hear me.
There we go. Perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Over to you.
Thanks, everybody. And sorry about that. Technology always, hey? Yes, so thanks for inviting me back. I always say to accountants, trusts probably form 10% of your business, probably 90% of your risk at this point. And that's really the scary bit. So as Walter said, him and I had a discussion. And even though I'm trying to educate people and warn them about the risks, people call me the fear monger. What I'm trying to do is really to warn you and educate you in terms of what's coming, but more importantly, how you can actually manage your clients' risks. And as you can see now, how that actually does create a massive business opportunity, especially for accountants. So I'm going to share now. Let's see if I can share. Okay, then Walter, the only other thing that you have to do is make sure that my slides move. That's normally the other great challenge that I have. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so today the discussion is threefold. Obviously, as Walter said, first of all, the Master's Office Trust online registration system, and then also going to just show you briefly in terms of what functionality would typically require if you want to provide trust services, and then just open it up for nice questions. We got a like a 2-hour session, so I think we will have time to just generally speaking, ask some questions and see if we can learn from one another. As I say, the trust world is changing so fast that it's really hard to keep up for everybody. So I'm on slide 2 now. Hope you can see that all. So just to do a bit of a recap, and lots of you already know these
Sorry, Fia, you muted.
Okay, am I back on?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry, when we actually speak to the general public, the general comment is my accountant's got everything under control. There's absolutely nothing I know about my trust. Often they don't even know what's going on in the financials, the paperwork. Don't even ask them about paperwork. So somehow they see their accountant as this kind of superhuman being, and that really creates a big, worry for me, because often the accountants haven't provided trust services, and I'm really worried about this ticking time bomb, especially when we look at what's happened with the FATF now, what's happening with SARS, and I'm sure all of you have experienced that firsthand. Right. So the next slide is now, typically in the old days, the attorney or even sometimes the accountant, if they had a template that they could copy and paste, they set up a trust deed for people. And every now and again, and we know trusts were on an average basis 7 years behind with trust tax returns. And when you look at the statistics for SARS, not a great number still. At some point, not too long ago, only 180,000 trusts submitted trust tax returns. Now we know the master with the universe, and they excluding testamentary trust, speak about 610,000 inter vivos trusts. So if you start expressing that as a percentage, still not great. And today is not to speak about SARS, but that's the one big warning. SARS have last Friday implemented the penalties for late submission or non-submission of trust tax returns, so for trust as well. But the querying system they're implementing, so probably only from September they would start levying these administrative penalties. So we're running out of time there to catch up with the 7 years behind. So that's just kind of a warning on the sideline. Trust administration per se has been completely neglected. And that is mostly because the accountant never did trust administration. Even though the clients assumed that everything was taken care of as per the previous slide. And we can see now that trust administration boils down to paperwork. And you can see with the tax returns, it's all about give us all the paperwork, give us all the resolutions, give us all the minutes, give us a trust deed, give us the latest letter of authority. SARS is really after paperwork. And when those verification letters hit, we see now to what extent they go to actually get down to give us supporting documents, loan agreements, rental agreements, if it's a primary residence. Can you see how deep these kind of things go? So trust administration, even though it was lacking, and nobody really picked on it in the past. Remember, the master is a postbox. When you look at SARS, lots of people, until quite recently, they said SARS is useless. They don't understand trust themselves. So the time has come that we communicate with our clients actually what we do and what we don't do. And that's obviously where we create the opportunity. Because often in South Africa, and that's why when these FATF measures hit, South Africa is super unique because we often have family members as the trustees, and in many cases, the only trustees. Prior to 2017, a lot of the family trust did not even have an independent trustee. If there is an independent trustee, where is it leaving you now? And I know a lot of accountants are independent trustees, but where does it leave you now? Because often it's the husband and the wife with you as the independent. So we tick the box now for the Chief Master's directive to have an independent trustee. But they sideline you because they rely on the majority vote, which, so by the way, does not work so well anymore after a recent court case. But they just expect you to sign a pack of documents, kind of in retrospect, in hindsight, which, creates a massive risk for you. So I think before anybody takes on trusteeship, especially independent trusteeship, you need to be super, super careful because you are co-responsible for the trust administration, as you know now, for the FATF, with those 10 million or 5 years imprisonment fine triggers, the 3 of them. Actually, you are jointly liable, if things haven't been done there. Now, I honestly believe a lot of the times the family members haven't done things deliberately to launder money, etc. But now these new measures may actually, cause convicts of ordinary citizens because it's a criminal offence if you actually don't comply with the amended Trust Property Control Act. So really a unique situation in South Africa, and worldwide where they implemented the FATF measures, obviously, not so relevant, but in South Africa, very, very different, and causes a lot of extra risk. So talking to the accountants today, you may wear different hats depending on what service you provide. Obviously, if you are a trustee, an independent trustee, those 10 million fine triggers or the 5 years imprisonment, that sits under there. And you need to do certain things as a trustee together with your other trustees. When you look at SARS, we know they got their own rules as far as the beneficial ownership information is concerned. That's a representative trustee, and very cleverly, they don't just going to speak to or keep the main trustee or the representative trustee liable, the one that we actually register. When we register a trust as a taxpayer, they put in brackets the trustees. So they already acknowledge that joint ownership, joint liability for the trustees. And if it includes you as an independent trustee, it's really something that you have to be mindful of. Now, if you are an independent trustee and or you provide trust services, then under the amended FIC Act, you are now an accountable institution. Now you remember I've done a webinar some time back, I think it was June 23, the FIC ran a webinar where they actually wanted to bring all the accountants in, regardless of what you do as an accountable institution, and then you had to be registered with a FIC. Obviously, a lot of the accountants were up in air and said, you know what, we merely submit a trust tax return. How can you make us an accountable institution? Because we're not even part of the structuring and setting up of entities. We're merely submitting a trust or a company's tax return. Then the FIC did a turnabout, the PCC 6A, there was a draft where they tried to pull in all the accountants, and then they changed their minds and they amended it. So they define specific activities now. So after the master went on to this massive drive towards the end of last year, remember the Chief Master had a webinar we were part of, and trying to get people to submit beneficial ownership information to get off the grey list. Now, for those of you who don't know, we have shown enough progress on paper, and I want to put a disclaimer on paper that the FATF have been convinced that we tick that box to have transparency of beneficial ownership information as far as trusts and companies are concerned. Because you remember, towards the end of last year, October, November, the FATF still wasn't happy with our progress. We know now that we started just before that webinar with a 42,000 trusts that submitted beneficial ownership registers, and they upped that to over 145,000 now. So obviously the progress that we've shown convinced the FATF. They must still come and do an on-site visit. So don't for once think, we necessarily off the hook. We still need that on-site visit, which is some fancy hotel in Paris would be convinced the FATF that we have done enough, and that the progress is much better to actually tick the beneficial ownership boxes. So that's your trusteeship. Now the FIC is on an absolute drive to, first of all, educate the trust and company services providers, to find them, to know where they are sitting, because it's new to them as well. And not going to focus on the FIC today, but you will see that they have only, before these new, let's call it the FATF measures came into place late 2022, they only supervised about 4,000 entities. Now that their mandate has been expanded to such a degree, we know Schedule 1 of the FIC Act has been expanded to such an extent that it includes a lot of extra service providers, including trust and company services providers. So it's equally new to the FIC. And now with that increased mandate, and not enough people have registered, I have to tell you, only about 5,300 registered trust and company services providers. And as accountants, we are many, 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 many more. So they know there are people that haven't even registered. So of those that have registered, plus the other accountable institutions, they're up from 4,000 to about 53,000 of the 58,000 registered accountable institutions. So a lot of the mandates have been taken away from other supervisors and given to the FIC because of their strong audit capability. So I really want to warn you today, be mindful with the FIC and how all these law enforcement agents can now eventually tap into the Masters portal that we are going to have a look at now. We are running a webinar tomorrow, and the FIC is also going to be there just trying to educate the accountants. So you can reach out to me. You can find us on LinkedIn. So if you haven't registered yet, please register, because we're going to give practical tips in terms of when are you an accountable institution? What do you have to do when you're an accountable institution? etc., etc., and a very stern warning from the FIC. I tried my best to buy some time and said, can't we just have like a little bit of a voluntary disclosure program like SARS have with accountable institutions to help them to come clean, because you have missed a couple of deadlines now, which is punishable, and they are dishing out admin penalties. And I said, please, if we manage to get the accountants and the other trust and company service providers to register and to come clean, can you please not penalize them? And they said, absolutely no. We are an institution that has to be seen to penalize, because it's not going to look good with FATF. So I think the warning there is, if you haven't registered, if you haven't, for example, submitted your risk and compliance return, your RCR, already 2 years back, May 2023, and if you haven't recently, I also put it out on LinkedIn because a lot of people are not even aware what they're supposed to do. The risk and management compliance programs had to be in on the 12th of March. So absolutely crucial that's a huge focus area, and you will see now the Masters portal going digital, how they are actually bringing people into that FICnet as an accountable institution. We've also integrated with DocFox when you look at our system, so it's seamless to actually help you to manage your risk as an accountable institution. I think that's the first thing, because you do provide these services and you do help your clients, but the fact that you do that now makes you an accountable institution. So we're trying to manage your risk, number one, and then secondly, we enable you to manage the trustees' risk as far as they are picking up risk in terms of these new provisions. And if you are an independent trustee as well, then better make sure you are covered from that perspective as well. Okay, a lot of accountants I've seen, historically trying to put it in a company box. We just on accounting systems, on how we deal with them, how we think about them, the paperwork. It's not so important for companies like a trust. The court said the trust is run by resolution. It means it has to be in place, real time, up to date, before a transaction takes place. That's a massive mind shift for accountants who obviously, historically prepared a pack of financial statements with lacquer supporting resolutions backing it up, and then we sign them retroactively. Those days are gone. SARS employing AI. So if there's one thing you stop doing and you're not helping your client, you're certainly not helping yourself, because SARS is also coming after the tax practitioners for enabling or allowing these things to happen. So a trust is a super unique thing. And, that caused a lot of confusion when these beneficial ownership definitions came out, because the FATF came and they said, no, we call a founder, a trustee, a beneficiary, a beneficial owner. And in South Africa, founder can't be seen to be a beneficial owner because they relinquish control. They give away their assets to the trust and then stop it there. When you look at the trustees, it's not economic ownership that they have. They hold the assets on behalf of the trustee of the beneficiaries in the trust. The beneficiaries can never be seen to automatically have economic benefit. Mostly we're trying our best in a trust deed to tell SARS that this is a discretionary trust, and creditors. This is a discretionary trust. We do not automatically vest income and capital gains in the beneficiaries. Only once the trustees vest something in the beneficiaries, then they actually have a claim against the trustees. So, but you can see now we're sitting with a FATF that's literally rule-based. They want information of those bodies, much more complicated than a company. And when you look at the Trust Public Control Act, the way it stands now, it's up-to-date information of all of those entities that you have to keep. So without a system, you're going to really struggle to keep it up to date. You can see it's a whole mind shift, it's a whole culture shift, amongst the board of trustees. They have to communicate on an ongoing basis with one another. If anybody's address, cell phone number changes, the beneficiaries move overseas, or the trustees move overseas, you have to report it as a change in beneficial ownership information. So this is ongoing, very different to a company or a SIPC that you do it once a year with an annual return or within 14 days after it changed, real time. Up to date, as the regulations are saying. So a trust needs to be treated as a very different animal altogether and need to be thought about it that way. Otherwise, you're going to pick up issues. So to get back to the Masters Office history, I know we're all up in arms. hysterical about all the service delivery issues with the master. You know, in a couple of on a couple of platforms, and again on the webinar, I don't know, for those of you who didn't attend, on the webinar explaining the new portal, the master actually again reiterated they are aware of it. They've got sympathy, and that's why they are modernizing their systems and moving to technology, because it's going to become impossible. It's falling apart because they just can't keep up with the manual work. And very interestingly, I did not realize how their workload increased, because they started 351 years old institution. Can you believe how old that is? The first trust was recorded in 1833. Okay, I don't think necessarily for money laundering at the time, but you can see, because we took a shotgun approach, we didn't risk rate or anything, all those trusts registered ever since now fall under the new beneficial ownership requirements and the rest of the Trust Property Control Act amendment. So the workload of a master increased substantially. Remember, they do estates, the Guardians Fund, lots of other stuff. So there were 2 court cases, late 2002 only. The master was tasked with administering interstate estates of Black South Africans for the first time, increased the workload substantially. Not a lot of extra people appointed. And then in 2004, again, the master was assigned to administer estates distributed under customary law. So you can see how the workload of the master just increased, and that together with all the other, inefficiencies, the lack of infrastructure. We know the emails often don't work, the printers don't work, the telephones don't work, etc., etc. It's really become a very difficult place to work. So I, in a way, have a lot of sympathy with where we are. So I'm really embracing, what they have come up with. Now we know there was a complete trust reset in early 2023 with the FATF and SARS. Pretty much they've been creeping up, for the last number of years. We can remember far back as the Davis Tax Committee in 2014, 2017. So SARS kind of ramped up, and they wanted to focus on the historically wealthy. So when these new measures hit the master, they quickly had to transform from a postbox who literally just took a file or took a new trust or a trust amendment or a trustee amendment, do the paperwork and file it into like a paper-based record. And we know now how their piles are lying in their corridors in some of the master's offices. So obviously the regulations require of the master to have a digital register of all the trusts with the beneficial owners. So you can see no more postbox. They now need to get to digital record keeping and to hold that register. So that was like a bomb shock to them, similar like it was a bomb shock to us, in the trust space, to deal with beneficial ownership information. So we know they had a horrible Google Docs form to do beneficial ownership information. Now they got a more sophisticated register, permanent register that they call them. But you can see now, as a further phase, they're looking to actually replace that with this new system that they're going to implement now. So as part of this modernization process, they actually implemented the deceased estates already in 2023. Now I know a lot of people say, it doesn't work. Unfortunately, with all these systems that are going to implement, they rely on Department of Home Affairs to validate IDs to make sure there's no fraud and corruption. So yes, the Department of Home Affairs is often. So I really think government should make sure that there's increased capacity there. Apart from that, the system works. It is the Department of Home Affairs that's problematic. And you see now, even when you start engaging the online trust system, that it's the same story. So it may hang and it may hang and it may hang. So you may have difficulty to do that. Okay, so obviously, as Walter said, the online system for trust was implemented early March, and we'll have a look at the timelines now. And for liquidations, the Guardians Fund curators and tutors, that is what they are going to have a look at later in the year, or from 26 onwards. So they are looking to digitize the entire master's office over time. So for trust specifically, they are creating a QR coded letter of authority, which is great. So then we know we can't fudge it. If we're trying to produce an old letter of authority for transactions and somebody's trying to validate it with a master, it's going to fail because it gets overridden every time the master issues a new letter of authority. So that's great, similar to on the estate side. So from 18 March 2025, they actually implemented that QR-coded letters of authority. They piloted the new system, the registrations of new trusts, earlier in March in Gauteng, and that was obviously for the Joburg office and Pretoria offices. And obviously they worked, for the rest of March addressing issues. We're on a WhatsApp group where we are, fixing all the bugs and working with the master. And then late in March, the master presented to government stakeholders and law enforcement agencies, and obviously they're ecstatic, including SARS, I think, for knowing that they can now get to the trust that they always were hoping for, that were never registered as taxpayers. You'll see now that it's still not there because this new system is only for new trusts being registered as we speak now. Obviously, there's a whole backlog with horrible paper files that the Master's Office is currently looking at. Okay, the Chief Master also brought out a Directive 2 of 2025, and they titled that Trusts Implementing QR Code on the Master's Appointment Letters and Online Trust Registration of Trusts. They brought that out on 27 March, so you can have a read at that. And then they activated the online platform for all users who actually needing to register trusts for Pretoria and Johannesburg, starting 1 April. So in the 27 March directive, they actually said no more walk-ins allowed from the 1st of April for Pretoria and Joburg alone. That's where they start. You have to use. So for those of you who do submit stuff to the Master's Office of Johannesburg and Pretoria, no more walk-ins, only on the digital platform that we're going to show you quickly today. Then on the 3rd of April, there was a webinar for the rollout, to the Master's offices, Joburg and Pretoria, but other people could also attend. And after that, they posted some links to some of the videos that they showed in terms of how the functionality works. I'll show you or give you a link to that as well. So no more walk-ins from 1 April. It's no April Fool's joke. And they'll roll that out to the rest of the nation in early May. They're quite optimistic. So you can see they're pushing really hard. So just more than 2 weeks. But before that, they would have another webinar national-wide. So watch out. I'll also remind people, but there will be another webinar to talk you through the functionality. Okay, so what can the system do right now as we speak? Okay, obviously you need to again register your profile. So if you have registered your profile for estates already, that is the same place where you would then do the trust work. So once you're in the portal, you can see the master starts listing all their services. So you're not going to have a separate registration for trust, estates, guardians fund, etc. They're going to have a single registration platform. So that's your link that you go on. You'll see later it's different to the beneficial ownership register link. That was a different one. And I'll show you that later as well. So first, when you register obviously as a person. Then you can create an entity or a service provider profile under your individual profile after that. So I'll show you now just some of the stuff that I've come across. And then the Intervivas Trust registration can be done now. You're going to get a QR coded letter of authority issued. You can retrieve documents such as letters of authorities of Intervivas Trust on the portal, and electronic validation of letters of authority of Intervivas Trust. So if the banks, estate agents, whoever deal with trustees now, they can actually validate that with the master. You can get notifications. The master beneficial ownership register would automatically be updated with details of, at the moment, obviously just new trust registrations. Okay, I'll show you later on what's the plan as far as beneficial ownership is concerned. But when you register a brand new trust, it automatically creates a beneficial ownership register for that trust with the information that you provide on the platform. So you don't have to submit a beneficial ownership register for the new trust that you're going to do on this portal now. Okay, so obviously for the rest of the country, as we still speak, I'm just talking about Joburg, Pretoria, from hopefully beginning of May, that would be nationwide. And then you can track Intervivas Trust's statuses as well. Okay, then what is the plan soon to come? is trust amendments. They had that on for the new trust that you would register on the platform to amend those, and that would include trustee changes and accountant changes and trust detail changes. They've just switched it off again because it's just under pilot. And obviously, once, for these replacements, then that you could do a new QR code at Letter of Authority would be issued, and then we'll cancel the previous one. Okay, then the plan is also to terminate Intervivos Trust. I think that's great. Remember the great cleanup that we had towards the end of last year to get rid of the so-called dormant trust, or let's call the SARS term rather passive trust, those ones that were just never activated. So maybe that will be great to jump and kill them, because the beneficial ownership requirements as well as the other two fine triggers run for these things. They didn't distinguish and say forget about the dormant trust. Every single trust, every single type of a trust needs to meet the beneficial ownership requirements and the two other requirements of trustees that we'll speak about later. Okay, so, and then the beneficial ownership register would also automatically update, when we're actually making these amendments now. But remember, the amendments after you register new trust on the platform have just been switched off for a while they, troubleshooting. And once they switch it on again and you make those amendments on the platform, it will also automatically update the beneficial ownership register. Okay, then now we're looking in future. What are the plans? Is also to amend the auditors or accountants. I hate that word auditors because I think 99% of trusts in South Africa are not audited. And being a beanie myself, I hate this word. So I must convince them to stop using it. So you can amend beneficiaries. And then obviously bonds of security, and they're going to look digital there for those guys of you who do road accident fund trust, medical negligence trust, and those. Amendment and termination of Intervivos Trust, historically registered, manually registered. So those are the old paper file trusts. So they obviously want to bring them onto the system as well. And a call may very well come from the master. And you know what? It just is what it is. Most or lots of those files have gone lost. There was a big drive to scan all the paper files, but I think we're probably going to get to a point where the master is going to say, upload the documents that you have. Let's create the register. Let's create it so that they can actually start using the functionality on the online portal. But they haven't gotten a solution yet. I think they're still kind of toying with a couple of ideas. Okay, then they also obviously from the FATF requirements and the regulations now require them to share trust data with law enforcement agencies in terms of the regulation. So they need to do that. It's not been done yet. So interesting to see what the FATF would do with that. And then online payments. Wouldn't that be great? So that 250 Rand currently that we pay, it will probably go up a little bit. But that payment, can then be done online in future as well. And there's going to be assistant bot and a chat bot to become really funky. And what is excluded for now, including the actual current new trust registrations, testamentary trust, you'll see everywhere I just refer to Intervivos Trust. They're excluding testamentary trust completely. And I found it quite interesting. I actually found that out quite late after I started getting involved in trust, that the master's office, they almost see it as two different divisions. The testamentary trust sits under the estate section and it will always stay there. It doesn't move to the trust section ever. Whereas Intervivos Trust is in a separate section. So for now, testamentary trusts are excluded in totality. Okay, and therefore you would need to continue manual process there. Okay, so turnaround times. Now people say, okay, obviously, the master said that we can you can sit in the comfort of your home, do any of these trust amendments 24/7, and then probably thinking, oh, that's great, I can have it like straight away, letter of authority. Obviously, there's still some checking, etc., that needs to take place. So they keeping the 21 days turnaround that they used to have when things worked a little bit better. But the increased efficiency may actually result in faster turnaround times. So hopefully that will improve as their staff now gets used to the system as less and lesser queries come up, and people start submitting correct information from word go. So I can see the speed picking up tremendously here. But for now, still 21 days, which is much better than the I almost said years, months, or probably years that you're waiting for a new letter of authority. Okay, so what's the plan with beneficial ownership? Because to me, that's almost something over and above, although it forms part of what we've discussed now. So currently, the beneficial ownership, as we know, is done under different login, and there's your login. It's trustonline.justice.gov.za. Now the beneficial ownership register will automatically be updated as new trusts are registered. Okay, so new trusts. Okay, in future, obviously, then they're looking at the older trust, the paper-based trust. So they're looking to do that as well. And then the beneficial ownership would automatically update as well. And then in future, SARS is also looking to automatically get information from the master. Wouldn't that be great for tax practitioners? Because then, and I've always been saying, why not a central repository of beneficial ownership information for the country, where different law enforcement agencies, SARS, the master, can actually pull their data from. So it looks like this is the direction that they are going. I just want to see what they're going to do, because they've admitted that they implemented the beneficial ownership information in quite a hurry. So the requirements of the FATF. So, can't be a shotgun approach. We have no risk rating. All trusts are included, and it's immediate, real time, up to date, which makes it really difficult. So they want to see if they can have a little bit of a lighter touch going forward. But as we speak now, it's a real time, up to date requirement. So don't think you don't have to update the beneficial ownership register as and when things change. So yeah, it's just give an idea in terms of how things are going to change. So I think it's going to be interesting to see that, are they going to amend the legislation to say no more real time? Do you do it up here when we're not making necessary trustee change or beneficiary change, just the beneficial ownership information change? So would you do it on the same portal? It looks like that is the way they want to go in future. Okay, so I think that gives a good plan forward. And just for now, only new trust when we register them. When they roll out amendments, then it's going to update the paper files, the old trusts. There's still a strategy outstanding there. Careful for SARS would then get the information from it. Okay, what about original documents? Now people say, oh, but don't the master now need original documents? Do we still have to go and submit that? Absolutely not, because you scan it up. It's a web-based platform that you're actually going to do your registration and submit the documents online. So obviously the trustees would be required to keep the original documents with them. You just need to upload, and you can do that. You can scan that in, as part of the platform. You don't have to now take it to the master as well. So they take electronic copies of all submitted documents now, excluding bonds of security. Those must be submitted originally to the master. They say you can still upload a copy, but then you have to take the bond of security to the master physically. They are looking to do like a Home Affairs, API with the service providers to actually pull that information automatically. But for now, all documents scan up, excluding bonds of security, that they actually need the original. They don't even need the original letter of authority anymore, etc., etc. Okay, the master may actually request original documents for verification purposes at their discretion and to verify. So that's why the trustees have to keep the originals with them. The current standard operating procedures, unfortunately, requires trustees to submit certified copies of ID documents. So although it looks stupid, you need to scan a certified copy. Looks really stupid, but you have to actually keep the original. So they said standard operating procedure. Unfortunately, currently they need a certified copy. So that is what you have to upload. So not just a normal ID, it must be certified. You keep the original. Okay, so I think that's important. They may change their standard operating procedures. They said it may become out of date now, but as we speak now, a certified copy upload, you must keep the original. Okay, then as far as document size are concerned, you must make sure that the maximum size of each document, not all of them, each document is 5 megabytes. And importantly, they may look at ways to accommodate, larger documents, because some trust deeds are like massive, right? So do you break it up, or are they going to allow one pack of documents, kind of break it up digitally and then kind of combine them at the back again? So 5 megabytes per document. Okay, so here's help. This is where you would go. So the videos that I referred to earlier, there's your link on YouTube. Very practical, step by step, what you have to do. I'm going to just take you through a couple of the stuff. I'm not going to repeat what's in the videos. You can literally go there. I want to rather focus on, what kind of information, where we don't agree, where they still need fixes, etc., etc. They have made available a support email if you get really stuck, because at the moment they have for estates a support functionality or help functionality, but not for trust yet. So your point of call would be the email that I've given there. Okay, so first of all, I said earlier, we need to register as a person. So you register, you can see there, register as a new user when you hit that link. And when you register a new user, that is what they require. It's all the details of you as a person. Okay, and there's the link that you would obviously use. Once you have registered as a user, then you can now create a profile, or you can add new profiles,
Just can't read a
because
thing. She's
sorry,
putting all these things up that I can read.
sorry, somebody's saying something. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so on that link, you now have created yourself as a user. Now you go to my profiles on the left-hand side there, and now you can create a profile. So the moment I saw that, my blood boiled, because you would see SAICA is not even on there. So I have communicated that to the master's office. They may have gotten confused with other professional bodies, but there are a couple issues on this registration or the creation of a new profile. Okay, so obviously you can act as the individual, like you registered. You can just carry on acting under your individual user profile, or they allow you then to create a service provider. A service provider on the left-hand side there is LPC. So they currently validate credentials against the LPC. And obviously, I can see this was coming from, obviously, the estate side. So that is why it's separate, a service provider. They also allow you to act under an entity such as your practice. When you want to create a profile as an entity, this is what's coming up on the right-hand side. And this, you can see, I've got a couple of issues. The first big one, there's no SAICA, which I have reported. And then most of those bodies, including SAICA, ACCA, they do not have FISA. They do not have corporate registrations, right? It's personal designations. So only persons can become members, not corporates. So this is a big problem that they must take out. They must take it out. If you choose sub C, the second one there, they actually use that to validate that against sub C. So this is something that they're going to have to change. So don't get a heart attack when you don't see SAICA. I have already reported that. Okay, now you can see when you create a new trust or want to perform an action on the platform now, you can either do it under your personal one, or you can switch on the left-hand side. You can go to a service provider, one of the listed ones that you've created, or you can go to an entity profile and then work under that entity rather. Okay, you understand now how we create a user and how we create a profile or add multiple profiles, and then you can switch between these profiles. Okay, so now into registering a new trust. When you register a new trust, you obviously log in to the portal. Then you go to the Master of the High Court Services drop down on the left-hand side. You see it opens up all the master services over time. And then you will see there's deceased estates trusts there. And then when you click on a trust, you would see that you can register a trust now. They had trust amendments under it, but they just hidden it again just to retest. So at the moment, the system can only allow you to do trust registrations. Okay, so this I'm going to fly through. You'll see this in the video as well. You'll recognize, for those of you who prepare J401s, as you know, a compulsory document that must go with a trust registration or trust amendment. Most of the information here copied and pasted from the J401, which is a 7-page document that we have to submit with a submission, right? So you can see there the trust name, etc., etc. Where will the greatest portion of the assets be located? Then it will bring up the master's office automatically. And is this a court order application? Then it will take you down a certain route. So this is nothing new. It's literally just digitizing the J401. Okay, then the court order trust, obviously they want more information. You know, annual audits required when it is a RAF trust. For example, where will the assets be located, etc., etc. The number of minor or mentally incapacitated beneficiaries, and so forth. Then you get to the probable trust duration, and that is a free text field, so you can type in the indefinite, what we used to have on the J401s. The number of trustees, when you go there, please remember it includes the independent trustee. So if you have 2 family trustees and an independent trustee, that number must be 3. And then they also want to know, of that number of trustees, how many are independent trustees? Because they want to make sure for the family business trust. You saw the previous slide. They ask there, is this a family business trust? If yes, we know now the Masters Directive 2017, it requires you to have an independent trustee. Okay, and then we have a minimum number of trustees, a maximum number of trustees. A lot of the old trusts did not have that, but you can see now the master requires it now. So, and at the moment, the way the system stands, if I say there can just be 1 trustee, which by the way is allowed, unfortunately at the moment I can't put in minimum 1, maximum 1, because the system, their platform does not allow it. It's something that they must fix. So, yeah, so you get that off your trust deed typically. So you need to make sure that's obviously catered for in your trust deed. Then the applicant details, that's the person who does the application. So all the information there, I'm not even going to go through that. You'll see on the right-hand side, they say, is this applicant a trustee, a founder, an auditor? If you said yes, then it will automatically populate those as well for you once we get to those persons in the form. Okay, so these are just the contact details. I'm not going to go too much through that. Obviously, you'll get the slides. And then the contact information, you can see what kind of contact information they do require. Then we get into the... Sorry, can you just put yourself mute?
Let's mute.
下一步呢，要做那个 beneficial ownership filing， 在这个受益人的那个申报是
Good, done.
Hi, sorry, Faye.
Oh, sorry, I've been muted as well. Okay, so yeah, then the contact details of the... Oh, no, I've lost my track completely. Okay, so the main contacts details, obviously that there, and then the further information that's required of the main contact. Now remember, if you said the applicant is also the founder, then this information will be automatically populated, and you can see what's left there. We still need to do trustees, beneficiaries, auditors, bond of security, and supporting documents. So when we add the founder, obviously when you look at the current forms and obviously the beneficial ownership information, this is what they want to use it for. Currently, there's no email or telephone number. They need to fix that. And then obviously, you know, further that they would see the founders, and you can add multiple founders. Obviously, you can edit details, etc., or you can delete if you made a mistake. Then the trustees, the same story. You can add multiple trustees. And then you'll get this alert. The number of trustees added should be equal to the number of trustees declared. Remember the minimum and the maximum. So you need to make sure the minimum maximum just above that is the number of trustees, including the independent trustee. So make sure that that adds up. Otherwise, it would not accept it. Okay. yeah, what is quite interesting for those of you who knows the J417, there's this tick box where you say, do you exercise direct special personal control to maintain personal records? I'm of the view that every trustee should click that, because you do exercise, personal control over trust records and assets. So what they require on here, at least one trustee must indicate that. So I don't know what it means. I don't know if they can keep that trustee liable, because it's joint liability. But yeah, at least on the system, at least one person, trustee, should have that ticked. All right, so that's that. And then when you look at the trustee, is the organization, it could be an organization, it could be individual. A lot of people are not aware that a trustee can be a legal entity, including the independent trustee. And then you obviously need to give the details there. And you can see further motivations for the requirement to have an independent trustee. Is a trustee also a beneficiary? Is a trustee related to any beneficiary? Then obviously it's going to ask you to have an independent trustee. And there's your declaration, the normal questions that were copied and pasted from the J417. And then obviously the contact details, and the addresses that you have to submit then. As far as the beneficiaries are concerned, you can have multiple beneficiaries. At the moment, they do not have classes of beneficiary, which is a big issue. It's something that they have to address and are in the process of addressing. I think that's probably one of their big priorities, because people have been screaming and shouting because they can't submit new trusts without beneficial ownership classes. Okay, then obviously, if your beneficiary is a minor or mentally incapacitated person, you will also be prompted to add the details of the guardian or curator. So just so that, so you have that, and that's obviously on the beneficial ownership information, exactly the same. We need to add those persons' details. Okay, that's your details that you see. The auditor's details, as I said earlier, should no longer be auditor, because we know it's auditor/accountant. And when you look at the Trust Public Control Act, the auditor has got quite a massive responsibility. I think it's section 15 around there, requiring you to deal with issues, whereas an accountant, obviously, it's not the case. Okay, then at the moment, those credentials are not being validated, the accreditation bodies, etc., etc. It's obviously something that they could get to in future. And no email and telephone number is also on the auditor. It's something that is on the J405, so it is something that they have to fix. Okay, then the addresses, just postal and domicilium addresses. The bond of security, for those of you who do bonds of security. If there's no bond of security, it would be the reason of the exemption. And if you require a bond of security, that would be the detail that you need to require to add there. The issue there is the security amount on the right-hand side can be different from the initial asset value, but the system at the moment, it has to be the same value by design. So that is also something that they have to fix. The supporting documents, as you go through all of this now, the supporting documents, they give you a place to upload. It actually generates some of the documents automatically for you. And then you can upload the rest there. So that is the supporting documents. And yes, just as far as the drop down of the supporting documents, there's a couple of mistakes there. So this the second one, the affidavit of acceptance of appointment as a non-independent trustee, that must be an independent trustee. Remember the certified IDs that need to be kept by the trustees for now. You can obviously upload a certified ID. It can't just be a normal ID. And then even though you are uploading the documents here, remember that you need to keep the originals with you in case the master wants to verify that. So when you're submitting your trust, that's obviously the message that you would get. And once you submit it, then it actually goes over to the estate controller. So that's the message that you would get. And then obviously there's a statuses page, your registered applications. There are a couple of statuses that you would come across. When you start a new trust at the moment and you exit, obviously after you saved, it will be incomplete, so you're still busy with it. You have awaiting DHA validation. That is where at the background it was running. It couldn't hit Department of Home Affairs. So it may show you there that they are still waiting for the Department of Home Affairs. Once that's done, the screening can take place by the master. And when it's a screening status, then the master is busy with the electronic file. If there are issues, you would get a rework request where they require you to make certain amendments or do something in additional. And when the case is registered, that's obviously when your trust is registered at this point. Once your case is registered, you will receive the letter of authority on email, the applicant, and you can also access it here. You can see the document there. So, and then the actions on the right-hand side will tell you when you can still amend, when you can delete. You can see the delete button is there by incomplete. So if you just made a mistake or the trust is not going ahead, you can just delete it. The rest of them, you can either rework, or when you're still busy with it, or when it's done, you can't do anything to it. So that is your statuses that you would get on here. Okay, now quickly to the services that trustees do require. Remember that very first slide, I said my accountant's got everything under control, and that was kind of the expectation that, everything is honky-dory. And that's why it's so important to decide which services you want to provide and which services you do not want to provide, and then more importantly, communicate that to your client. But the problem is at the moment that if you can't provide the services, it's just become so complicated, and I'll show you a little bit in terms of the functionality, what trustees have to do, that they just simply can't do it. When you look at the trust administration leg, the second one, normal layperson trustees are just not going to cope anymore. So they're going to need services. So if you don't provide the service, I think you miss out on a good business opportunity. So a lot of accountants that we speak to, and Walter and I discussed that, they just want to run away from trust. Say, I'm out of here, I'm done. The problem is where your client's going to go, and then you lose the entire client. Now, if you just stick to, I'm not doing any of the other things, I'm just going to submit trust tax returns, I think you have realized now that it's becoming really difficult to submit the trust tax return because you simply just don't have the information. And my earlier warning, be mindful where you have to retrospectively go and create documents to pretend the trust that was administered, because SARS will employ AI to pick up these people, abusing the system like that. So you're literally going to get to a point where you can't submit the trust tax return. And in the unlikely event that you can find resolutions and minutes, for you to run around and tick and turn and make sure that every transaction has got a resolution. The SARS came out and said, leave the ones that's got to do with internal administration. We're not interested in those. We want the transaction resolutions because we can see the transactions are coming through. We're going to ask you for loan agreements, rental agreements, any transaction in the trust. So give us the resolutions for those. If you have gone manually tick and turn, you're going to have to charge your clients a lot of money. And it's going to be super time consuming. So it's more important, as I say, anybody providing trust service now, it's becoming really important. Remember we spoke about the reset for trusts in early 2023. It's becoming important to move much closer to your client, real time, because you'll see the requirement is real time, up to date. When we tested with SARS, the IT3Ts a couple years back, and we introduced trustees and we spoke about a real-time, up-to-date system, they said that's exactly where SARS is heading. I think the accountants fell off their chairs because it's something that they're not used to, is to keep information on a trust real-time, up-to-date. And for those of you who've done or attempted to do, I think SARS said to me the other day, only 18,000 trusts submitted to IT3Ts, and they were ecstatic. I said, wow, I don't think it's something to be proud of, but hey, you can probably test a system with 18,000. We know this year it's compulsory. Yes, I think it's really difficult to not have information handy that you can do that, and it's going to become real time. And as I said, on the e-filing IT3T, you would see the monthly buckets already there. So this is something that SARS is pushing for. So it's not just the FATF measures that we have to do real-time reporting or updating of the beneficial ownership information, that we actually need to make sure we have the correct resolutions handy before the transaction is completed, or very, very quickly after that. It's actually, we need to submit those documentation. So the statutory stuff, that's obviously a new trust deed, a trust deed amendment, trustee changes, accountant changes. And a lot of accountants said, oops, not my forte. It's not something that I really, get involved with. I'll show you just very quickly on the system. It's very, very simple to craft a trust deed and tailor it to your clients. Because even the attorneys, they copy and paste as madly as anybody else. And the quality of some of the trust deeds that I've seen is absolutely shocking. So I spoke to an attorney who calls himself the trust panel beater. He's been in the industry probably for 50 years now. He reckons that 90% of trusts are open to attack because of how badly the trust deeds were drafted. So very important that the trust deeds, because that's your constitutive charter, that you actually have to abide by as a board of trustees. Now, if you set up trusts, as I said earlier, you're an accountable institution automatically. If you provide trust administration and compliance services, you also an accountable institution. Under trust administration, obviously I spoke to a client some time back when I did a demo of the system, and he said, what is trust administration? How do you define it? I got such a fright that the best thing I could come up with is like the active hand-holding of the trustees. And if you are one of them, I'd be really worried. So that is the trust deed execution, because it's the constitutive charter. So we need to find a mechanism to make sure that we do what the trust deed requires of us at the time it requires from us. If the trust deed requires you to have 4 meetings a year, you have to make sure that those 4 meetings were held before you do the trust tax return, before the year end, because we need to submit those minutes now to SARS. Don't try and create that retrospectively. It's going to be a nightmare. Resolution, same story. The beneficial ownership information, I don't even speak about the registers anymore. Beneficial ownership information is required of trustees to be kept in terms of the regulations and the Trust Property Control Act. So when you look at the regulations, the extent of the information that the trustees have to keep, it's only an extraction of that goes onto the beneficial ownership register. So a lot of accountants have provided the service. Let me do a beneficial ownership register for you, and now we're off the hook. You haven't gotten the trustees off the hook, because they need to keep additional information real time, up to date as per the regulations. And now the accountable institution reports. So many people focus just on the beneficial ownership register that they forgot that there's 2 more fine triggers over and above the beneficial ownership register. So you can also pick up a 10 million fine and or 5 years imprisonment if you don't keep record of the trustees' interactions with accountable institutions. Now there you have to keep an accountable institution register, and you have to place on record with the accountable institution that the trustees deal with that they were acting in their capacities as trustees. Now you can see why I'm so scared of the FIC. They got audit capability, so they would rock up at their estate agent and say, give me a list of all the trusts that you deal with, and then show me where they placed on record that they were acting with you in their capacities as trustees. Hugely troublesome. One piece of document can get you into big financial trouble. And then the supporting documents on an ongoing basis, the verification letters that we see from SARS now, the rental agreements, the loan agreements, etc., and then audit trails. We need further supporting documents, and then obviously the master's requirements that we need to meet as well. So all in all, we need to demonstrate on an ongoing basis active participation of all trustees. So by the way, and when we go to court, often when you read the court cases, you see that there was one kind of dominating trustee and the rest were puppets. Now we know the Slipknot investment case, the court said, we're tired of these sleeping silent puppet trustees. We want to see active participation of all the trustees. So that is something typically where a system could actually help you when you go to court to demonstrate, or that we can actually deal with non-participating trustees. So, as I said, you're an accountable institution there. That's the extra layer of compliance. That's typically through our integration where the DocFox or now Encino cost would come in, because it's an extra layer of compliance. And a lot of accountants traditionally say to me, but we can't charge for this service. We can't use your system because we can't charge. I think things have changed a lot after the reset. And, there's education required of clients, because often they're still not even aware what they are supposed to do as trustees. Now, be mindful of that document that you submit to the master as part of your appointment as an independent trustee, where you undertake to oversee the layperson trustees, and be careful of NOCLAR, which is your non-compliance with laws and regulations as accountants, a massively important role. So people have to get used to compliance costs. It costs money to actually drive these compliance efforts. And that's typically where it fall under. You can see there for every service, and I think the line of sight is important. Don't just say, I'm charging you 5,000 Rand to look after your trust for a month. People say, are you crazy? And so I think if you spell out in your engagement letters, separate engagement letters, because they're different in nature, they're different in risk, sometimes it's different legal entities and or persons to spell out, and then have an indemnification clause, especially if you are an independent trustee. You lay down the rules. Our trust deeds, belts and braces now in terms of these are the new requirements. We're educating you. It's in your face. You can't come back and later deny that you weren't aware of all these new requirements. So I wouldn't be independent trustee without the proper system now, because the risk is just too much. And you can see the monthly fee is now risk-based. Depending on how risky the trustees that you work with, you're going to have to price accordingly. I think it could even be more than 2,000 Rand a month, because remember, you need to take out PI cover now because of the risk that you're picking up there. And that's why in your engagement letters, you can educate your co-trustees. You can tell them about the system, what each one's responsibilities, and then you're going to have to say, if you don't do what we all sign up to do, you're going to have to indemnify me. Whether it's going to work, because you're anyway going to, with a joint liability, the law enforcement agencies can come after you, but at least the indemnity may help you to recover the money if your client has got that cash. So accounting tax practitioner is the person last in the queue, and I feel really sorry for them, because the regulators actually made the tax practitioner the final auditor of trust compliance to tick and turn. Are there resolutions? Are there minutes? How many meetings were there supposed to be in terms of the trust deed? Oh my word, now we don't have that. So what do we do? So very important. So again, if you don't participate and you're close enough to your client, you can no longer afford to just be passed a box of documents or something digitally and say, prepare the financials, I need it quickly for a property transfer or something. And we know now that we're going to have to get into the motion to regularly submit trust tax returns because of the admin penalties that's been introduced now. So can you see why the line of sight is so important, how we can price differently so people can see what they pay for and understand what needs to be done? Because in the past, the fact that nothing was done, didn't justify the fact that we don't pay for these kind of services. And I think this is what's creating the opportunity for accountants, because they're sitting slap bang in the middle of this client relationship. And this is where you can unlock additional income streams and just doing it in a risk-controlled fashion. It's going to be interesting to see where the FIC is going to go, and we'll hear them out tomorrow. So please join tomorrow on the accounting and tax side. It looks like they want to pull in those accountants. They said to me they will even look at amending legislation again to bring in the accountants. So at the moment, if you're just doing tax returns, for example, you are not an accountable institution, but how many times are you just doing a trust tax return? You often structure and advise and say, do it this way. You don't even discuss with the client, you just do it. So I think be careful of your activities. Don't naively say, but I just do trust tax returns. And when the fix starts scratching, they say, no. A tax return is but one of your output, but one of your activities. So let's see tomorrow what they say. You may very well be an accountable institution there as well, and then have to register in any event and have to charge your client, for these compliance costs. Okay, so just in terms of what on earth do we have to do if we provide trust service, or if we get involved with trusts as an independent trustee and or an accountant and or a trust administrator. Okay, first of all, trust deed. That's your constitutive charter. You're either going to have to read it, very regularly, make yourself notes, create reminders, etc. And that's what we have done in our system to a large degree, is to help you comply with the ongoing obligations and to allow you to do certain things, stop you to do certain things. For example, we call them the trust deed parameters. That's linked to the powers given to the trustees. Remember, the trustees can't do anything outside of a trust deed that's not given to them in terms of the powers clause. So those powers we have connected, as you can see there, to specific pre-populated resolutions. It makes your life super easy. You don't need to be a trust expert. It's really, really simple to actually get to those pre-populated resolutions, and it's already in alignment with the trust deed. Otherwise, you're going to have to read the trust deed before any transaction can take place, especially if you are an independent trustee. And so, by the way, if you're just an accountant, the no clause is going to catch you if they want to do something that's out of, outside of the law. Open a bank account. Every trust has to have a bank account. I can't believe that people still argue with me and say, no, but the bank costs too expensive. We don't have a bank account. We just run everything to our personal accounts. Now you can see in the verification letters how SARS are now asking, give us a printout of the trust bank account. What are you going to give? Oh, sorry, no, here's my personal account with every single entry in there. And so, by the way, I'll just highlight the trust transactions for you. It's not going to be so cool. So every trust has to have a bank account. It's a separate entity. It needs to be run as a separate entity. And, the very first donation has to be reflected in the trust bank account. Otherwise, where did you put it? Under the bed or whatever. And we have to register with SARS. You can see the numbers now. SARS very proudly said they have got 400,000 trusts registered out of, let's say, 610,000. But remember, the 610,000 excludes testamentary trust with a master. The 400,000 includes testamentary trust. But worse is SARS have, in the old days with the banks, had this umbrella trust structure. Now, the umbrella trust structure, each of the hundreds of thousands of beneficiaries under that umbrella structure, to them is also registered as a trust. So I am looking forward to see what is the compliance as far as registration as a taxpayer with SARS is concerned. And now remember, again, use an accountant outside the law if you haven't opened a bank account or you haven't registered, or your client hasn't registered the trust with SARS. So huge non-compliance still today. So yes, that's what we have to do. And then we need to demonstrate that we're separating ownership and enjoyment, and we need to actually have the paperwork in place. We can't have a dominating trustee running the show, do whatever they want, disregarding the other trustees. And that's, the discipline that we create in the system to actually have the meetings, inviting all the trustees, show to a court that we actually have invited all the trustees, use the resolutions, use digital signatures to circulate. So it makes it very, very easy to involve everybody and quickly deal with issues before it ends up in a court or before SARS saying this is just an alter ego trust. The dominating trustee just ran the show as if the assets belong to themselves. So let's just include the assets values in the estate of the person concerned. Okay, minutes. Don't have to repeat that again. We need 4 sets of minutes, because the trust deed requires us to meet quarterly. Then we need to make sure that those were had at the time, not prepared retrospectively, because SARS will actually detect the time frame in which those minutes were created. If the minutes were created the same day, same fonts, and font changes happened that SARS is aware of, they're certainly going to catch you out. Okay, then an asset register. That is the legal requirement currently in the Trust Property Control Act. When you look at Section 11, the modern day interpretation is to have an asset register. Now, lots of accountants say to me, financial statements is an asset register. It's actually not. Often, when you look at, the fixed asset notes, often there's not enough information to equate that to an asset register. This is something the beneficiaries are entitled to see, when the asset was acquired, where it's located, the description, what is the cost, what's the current market value. So that kind of information is what you have to keep. Then obviously books of account, depending on what the financial statement, the trust deed says, whether we need financial statements or it could even be administration statements. It's just keep financial records. It's anyway good governance, and now SARS requires the financial statements to be uploaded, so you anyway need that now. It'll be interesting to see. It looks like the master is also going for financial statements, but currently the Trust Property Control Act does not require financial statements of you. Okay. Do trustees know who connected persons are? Our system, because trusts are so unique, because of the connected person rules for tax purposes, is so complicated. Every transaction in our system has got a transacting entity, and then we go define the transacting entity as a connected person, number one, and number two is as an accountable institution, because we need to create the accountable institution register. And then we remind on the dashboard where there are documents outstanding to fight those three fine triggers. We need to keep trust documents not just for a 5 years rolling period that's required for SARS. It's for the life of the trust plus 5 years. I haven't seen any paper-based trust that we have all the trust records, not just some of them, just a trust deed, whatever. It's every single document for the trust for 5 years after the termination of the trust. That's a big, big ask. Okay, so obviously our system, very, very briefly, takes care. It's a fully integrated system, taking care of everything all together. So we start at the top with a trust deed on the left-hand side. We've also brought in will capability, because in the old days we saw that the follow-up trustees of the family can often be appointed through a person's will. When you pick up the will, a completely different person drafted the will and did not even realize there is a trust deed, never mind the benefit to actually appoint a follow-up trustee in your will. So we've got a will wizard that accountants find very easy to use. You can actually, again, additional income stream to appoint yourselves executor, etc., etc. So the will functionality. Then we have the trust deed tailorable. You don't have to be a trust expert. You tailor the trust deed, practically asking a couple of questions to your client as a wizard. As you answer the questions, it actually populates the trust deed, point number one. Point number two, it creates the trust deed parameters that actually help us execute the trust and not making mistakes there. It's got fully fledged CRM capabilities. We have integrated with a number of CRM systems for, if you use it in your other parts of your practice as well, so that the trust system is not sitting here on its own. So fully fledged CRM functionality, notes, tasks, emails, the whole lot, all the masters processes there if you want to make any changes, etc. It's there. FICA, even though we have integrated with Encino X DocFox, in our system, we have also covering the risk of our clients being the accountable institutions, that the system stops you from entering into that business relationship as per the FIC Act if you haven't KYC'd your client properly. So it will stop you from doing certain things. It will remind you which documents you need to keep. It will give you a place where you can upload it, etc. And obviously the beauty of our integration with the Encino DocFox is seamless integration. We may have some of the documents, the IDs, proof of address, etc. Whatever we have, we send to DocFox, Encino. They verify it, send us back verification, and the ones that we didn't have, that we have now. So there's seamless integration. So while we're covering your risk as accountable institution, you then help the trustees manage their risks as trustees. All the master forms automatically on the platform. As you make changes, it updates the system. For example, if you do a trustee change, very important that you know exactly the point where the trustee is effectively no longer a trustee, because only from that date, it's not I resign with immediate effect and now I'm off the resolutions. You actually only offer resolution when you effectively no longer a trustee. The earliest you can be is once you, at the moment that you got that stamp from the master that you've submitted. So it's going to be interesting to see with the digital, when they roll that out, what is the point. But the court said we don't have to wait until you're physically removed from a letter of authority, because that may prejudice, trustees and the masters too slow. So when you have a stamp, but you can't say I resign with immediate effect, now I'm no longer signing resolution. So you can see how the system monitors and tracks, and consistently, the moment somebody is no longer a trustee, to take them off resolutions, off financial statements, off tax returns, IT3Ts, all those kind of things. Okay, then resolutions. I spoke about the pre-populated resolutions that are linked to trust deed parameters. We've got digital signatures, making your lives a lot easier. And then the meetings, full meeting capability on the platform to set up meetings, sending out agendas, recording the meeting, and then tracking how many we've had in terms of what the trust deed requires. Then the bank account. East Trust, as we said, need a bank account. We can pull in the bank accounts with many banks. We get a digital feed now. So we're very close to real time to make sure that the trustee can make informed decisions, and that we have information handy to do calculations such as Section 7C calculations, which is literally a month after year end, to do provisional tax returns as at the end of February, that we have the information handy and we can make proper distributions, etc. We're also pulling in the investment statements now to get that real time. The asset register, we populate through buying stuff and selling stuff. That automatically updates your financial side, your accounting side. Obviously, the document vault, super strong, the 5 years after termination of the trust for the life of the trust. And then we've got the IT3T functionality now that I'll very quickly show you. The trust tax return, we're busy, and we are becoming an ISV into SARS directly, so we can submit it. And then the accountable institution report, which is one of the output documents, that's a 10 million trigger or the 5 years imprisonment. And then the beneficial ownership register, and we generate the power of attorney as well. Okay, so before we get there, now I'm just going to show you quickly the okay, so this is what the system looks like. Multiple users can work on the system. The administrators, which is typically our clients, you can work across. So let me just get in again and kick me out. So multiple users, administrators, which is our clients, they can work across the system. Then we have the trustees. The entire board of trustees must participate on the system, signing resolutions, attending meetings, viewing documents. The accountant has got his own login. The tax practitioner's got his own login. We've got an originator role, anybody sending business or leads to our client being the administrator. If the independent trustee is external, that could be an external. If you just do trust administration, the accountant can also be external. So very flexible, kind of modular system where we ensure the participation of everybody. And I think still today, the single biggest advantage is our integration, because as you do one thing, it actually pushes you to the next and to the next, up to the point where you have a fully compliant trust as far as the administration, the compliance, accounting, and tax is concerned. So obviously our administrators, our clients, that's the administrators. This is like the CRM component. When you sign in, there's a dashboard. Works very well for management to actually check what is outstanding, where the problem areas lie. For example, where we haven't communicated with the accountable institution that we were acting in our capacity as trustees, or where we haven't updated the accountable institution register. So we have the 3 fine triggers in your face here to make sure that we don't trigger those fines. Okay, and then so the notifications are right in your face here, depending on what function you perform, inside your organization. Some people may focus on the statutory side, the trust registrations, amendments to the master. Then on the onboarding side, administrators, the compliance and administration, day-to-day administration, and then on the financial side, where things requiring attention. You can see there all the bubbles show these require attention. This is the stages of onboarding a trust, and then we got very good reporting, very tailorable. So a lead very early on could either be the originator, or it could be a trust administrator who can load a lead. All we need to know is the details. Do you want a trust? Do you have a trust? Once we've got that, then you can actually go into a trust. Now let me just see if I can get into this one. So obviously you'll see, for example, SARS, all the classifications. We got the information right through the system wherever we need it. We have it handy by the time we need it for a tax return or a IT3T or whatever, or a master's process, and that we use it consistently. Obviously, the masters, at the moment, the system generates the whole pack as well, like the master is doing now. So obviously for the existing trust, that's still way off for the master. Any change, any trust amendment, trustee amendment, we do all those processes. On the platform, it generates all the documents, but more importantly, it actually tracks when a change is actually effective. As I said earlier, these are the old trust members, as we call them, but you can see now for each of these very similar, and you see all the red in your face everywhere. It was all okay. We had placeholders and people just who used whatever they wanted until we hit the IT3T business specifications, business requirement specifications document, which is like a 280-page document, and that all these validation rules. So when we try to create the files for submission, obviously heavy, strict on, what a mobile number can and should look like, what an email can and should look like, ID numbers. I don't even know. I thought you could fudge an ID number. ID number and the tax number has got certain algorithms or calculations that they perform to check that it's actually a valid one. So you have to build in all of those. You can see already now, if you're accountable institution and you don't have a DocFox Encino, or if you do, we have the correct information, because the system will stop you if it's not in the correct format, like an ID or a tax number. But now, for example, if founder is a legal entity, or for that matter, any of these. As I said earlier, the regulations require the trustees to keep all this information. First of all, 14 fields of a founder, if it's a legal entity, then the representative, all those fields, and then it requires the ultimate beneficial owner. Now, for those of you who've had a look at the beneficial ownership register, I thought this was what the FATF requirements were all about. They forgot to put the ultimate beneficial owner on the beneficial ownership register. They only have a representative, so you can already see the trustees don't comply if they have just submitted the beneficial ownership register and they don't have this information handy. Okay, and then for the rest of the fields, as I said earlier, only an extraction of this go onto the beneficial ownership register. So as you fill in all this, it kicks out a list of documents, and then you can upload them here. If you have the IDs, proof of address, etc., you can upload them. Obviously, if you don't use Encino DocFox, you can make sure all the documents are on the system here as an accountable institution. When we have DocFox, obviously that extra step of verification, and then you do your accountable institution functionalities under the DocFox, like the PIP and the PEP checks and the risk and management compliance program and the training and those. I mean, we haven't built a system that fully takes care of your responsibilities as an accountable institution, but as far as knowing your client is concerned, obviously we cover that. There's the will functionality. You can literally just go through a will wizard with your client, and you can literally just ask questions, super simple. Organs, how do we deal with that? Data, who can into your Facebook profile, etc. Follow-up trustees, how do we deal with minors, with guardians, etc. Executors, and then any other options that you may have. And then it pops out a will for you in Word format that you can still chop and change. Okay, so that's that. In processing, when a trust is in processing, you can actually enter here And let's just do that. So once you can see the notes, tasks, sign and administrator, this is the person who would get the automatic tasks out of the system. Here you can see we picking up all the information that we need for the FATF, etc. You can see the profiles must be completed, the legal entities, beneficial owners, ultimate beneficial owners, all that crystallize here. The emails we're pulling in here as well, so it can be 100% standalone. When we define the beneficiaries, we've just loaded the beneficiaries. Then we need to say have they received benefits, are they referred to by name, and then do they include descendants, and then we need to define them further as income beneficiaries and capital beneficiaries. And then we need to look at the trustee parameters. It's here where it's very useful, where we can see that the statutory parameters, I mean, it's things we use consistently, the registration date, registration number, tax number, etc., that we're using across functionality. Then stuff that do with trustees, beneficiaries, how decisions are to be made, the powers of the trustees, how a trustee can be amended and how a trustee can be deregistered. So these are typically things that we saw variability over the years out of thousands of trustees we had a look at. So remember that minimum, maximum number of trustees on the Masters portal. If in future you want to appoint trustee number 6, the system is going to stop you and say, you are outside of the trustee parameters, first go and amend your trust deed. If it drops below the sub-minimum number of trustees, the system will remind you that you need a replacement trustee. If you want to approve trustee replacements, typically these are the combinations that we saw over the years. So depending on what the trust deed says, or if you're crafting a brand new trust deed, or you're busy with a trust deed amendment, you can literally pick the one after your discussion with the client with their family circumstances. And when I'm making a trustee replacement, the system will automatically pull in the correct people. Okay, so I think you're getting a pretty good idea how decisions are to be made. Here's an important one for the tax practitioners. If you need a meeting every quarter, then the system will tell you, I need 4 sets of minutes for this trust before the end of the year. And then it will track on the dashboard if you haven't had those meetings. There's your pre-populated resolutions, the powers. So for example, if the trust is not allowed to borrow money, it will block it. So it will block those resolutions that are linked to that. The rest will be available when we do pre-populated resolutions. How a trust is to be amended, very easy. I have seen multiple trusts that they didn't use the correct people to sign for amendments. And the amendment clause is drafted so badly, and now we know after the Potgieter case that we may have to include beneficiaries who receive benefits, even though they may not be mentioned in a trust deed. So that's typically places where people trip. So again, after you made your selection, automatically pull in the right people when we hit amend this trust deed. Okay, so you can see how that trust deed parameters work. Once we're done with that, we can actually do the KYC there. The KYC here, actually, that's got all for DocFox and Encino, it's got the trust information, the uploaded documents, etc., etc. So very smooth integration there, and then you can literally submit it to Encino if you link there. If not, you'll just see your normal documents that have been uploaded. Okay, so once a trust is activated, now we can activate the trust. And once the trust is activated, it actually allows you to put this thing on autopilot, right? So I'm just going to try this one. So still the notes, tasks, everything is there. So now I want to make any change in future. So I'll literally come down here and I say, now I want to... what I want to do, I want to remove a trustee. So you can literally come here. The system tells you exactly which documents you require. Sorry, this is not fully set up now. The system tells you exactly what you require, what you need to do. And once we remove a trustee and it created all those documents, it actually creates a reminder for you to go and populate the new beneficial ownership register, and you literally just go and hit it there and it automatically creates that for you. So all these are the master process. You don't need to be a trust expert. You don't need to farm it out anymore. It's literally a press of buttons. It will ask you for additional information. It prepares the whole pack for you. And more importantly, it activates on the system when that change is effective, because it may be different from the date you're actually preparing the documents. Okay, just quickly under the trust side, so the beneficial ownership registers, we've taken care of it now, so that's one of the big fine killers. And then when we actually look inside a trust, let's just see here. So inside a trust, you would see that, you know, that's the trust details. The trust members would be sitting there. That would tell us, you know, who the trust members are. If something is in the making with the master, it will be like a funny pink color. And when the change is effective, the administrator would come and mark it accordingly. When we crystallize people out of beneficiary classes, now I need, from a POPI's perspective, the information. And now I would actually have to you know, ask for the ID numbers, tax numbers, etc., because we're going to use that for the IT3Ts as well. The meeting's very simple to set up a meeting. You can literally just set up a meeting here. You see there the trust deed parameter is as a mandatory meeting. You can give it a name. You can put the agenda here, or just copy and paste your standard agenda. When we create a meeting, it sends out an automatic email with the agenda to the trustees. They can accept, reject, or send a proxy if the trust deed allows for it. The day of the meeting, we literally come in here and we can actually just move this thing, and then we can say, right, you know, we can go into the meeting now and record it, do the minutes on here while we actually chatting. We're busy incorporating the whole Teams suite, Microsoft suite, that people can use that as well. Okay, so quickly on the trust, there's your pre-populated resolutions. So if this trust was not allowed to take out life insurance, it would be blocked. Alternatively, all the trustee parameters, the allowed ones, are Word documents. So you see a lot of pre-populated resolutions. That's got the trust name, the correct trustees at the time. There may be a trustee change in the making, and then proposed wording that you can chop and change it because it's in Word format. Once you upload it here, you choose a document folder under which you want to save it, and then we use digital signatures to circulate it through the system automatically. The moment it's signed, it actually reminds you on the dashboard there's a resolution or a document being signed, so maybe you want to go and attach it to a transaction as an audit trail. Okay, every trust has to have a bank account. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but literally same functionality. You can create a rule, you can allocate the ad hoc transactions, and those are the ones typically that the poor tax practitioner is going to have to tick and turn. But in the system, we say attach a resolution so that you have that audit trail by the time you have to submit trust tax returns. We can do CSV templates for the ones that we don't have a direct feed from the different banks, and if the accountant wants to see the allocation rules there. Okay, then on the accounting side, the important thing is we gathering financial information. So we're trying an asset register. Now, method in the madness why to create accounting functionality is when you look at a trust specifically, remember I said it's a unique animal, even for SARS, they want to know every asset, how it was acquired. Because if it was a loan or a donation, it's probably going to be the attribution rules of section 7.2 to 7.6, or the corresponding capital gains tax paragraph 68 to 72. So you'll see there that unless you keep the information in the right order, how are you going to do the attribution rules the end of February to make sure that the tax got paid by the donor or the funder, and not we haven't distributed that to the minor beneficiaries to pay no tax? Now that's where a lot of people are going to trip, because the lack of this kind of information and the relationship, you know, put them into massive difficulty now. So you can see again paperwork all over, resolutions, purchase contracts, etc. This is the important one. How was it acquired? If you've got loan agreements, we can put the loan terms in here. If it's rate linked, we keep up the prime rate, official rate. The people become creative now with section 7C. It actually posts the interest automatically for you as well. But more importantly, when we create this asset acquired through that loan, in the trial balance, it creates a set of accounts with exactly the same number. So the asset with its liability, if it's a loan, with its income and expenditure accounts, because a lot of accountants have got 10 properties with one maintenance account, and now they need to start dissecting them, because remember, every asset needs to be kept as a silo, because different people may pay tax on different assets, you know, where we have the donors or the funders, where we have a certain amount attributed to them, then we can distribute, and only then the trust is the taxpayer of last resort. And that's, you know, where we have difficulty. So that's important. So as we then buy and sell stuff, we do that through the asset register, automatically update. The important fine killer, the two fine killers are sitting here. Remember I said the connected person rules. First of all, we need to say why somebody a connected person, and you know, this line could go far down the line here. But then when we had, the FATF measures implemented, obviously now we need to say, is this service provider an accountable institution? Because every transaction has got a transacting entity, remember? So it's easy for me to pick it up. So I say, yes, this accountant, Bianca does tax returns and trust deeds that she registers, and she does trust administration. So she's an accountable institution. We made it easy for for the trustees. Well, you're obviously going to help them. And you see now why I'm saying a normal layperson board of trustees is not going to be able to cope here. So you need to say under which section of Schedule 1 of the FIC Act, is this business a trust and company services provider? And then you just go down the line until you actually hit the last one. And then you say, did this service provider act as an agent, or do they provide services? What's the nature of those functions? Was this a single transaction as defined in the FIC Act? And then what's the transaction date? What's the nature of the transaction? Or was this by any chance a business relationship? When was the start of the relationship? What's the nature? And then I say, with the discipline that you're going to have for your clients, if you are also a trustee, is to say nobody will trot around selling houses out of the trust and you're not aware of it. Discipline, we communicate, this is the platform we will do it. Get a resolution authorizing somebody, because then the trust administrator is aware that somebody is running around speaking to accountable institutions on behalf of the trust. So after we got that resolution we can upload, then we get the confirmation document. This is the 10 million fine that we're trying to monitor here. So you can see, after we loaded the transacting entity, it will tell you on the dashboard, the accountable institution register is not complete. The confirmation document, we don't have that on record, get it. So that's the important bit. And then the trust organogram, that horrible compulsory document that SARS requires part of the submission, we just put it here just to make the tax practitioners' lives a little bit easier. So that's what you do. And then every transaction would have your transacting entity. It will know whether it's connected person, accountable institution. And then the normal accounting functionality, when you have loan profiles, you can see loan profile distributions that would obviously go on your IT3T together with the attribution rules. On the financial reporting side, we've got trust fund statements, because we're working with income and capital beneficiaries. We've got beneficiaries accounts, so we can tell them we've distributed so much to you, loans, etc. And then the connected person transactions, so that we, are aware of that. And then for those that want to use the financial statement side, you can create a normal set of financial statements. You can see it's a big cost saver. Okay, now I just want to quickly show the IT3T functionality. For those of you who tried to do the manual way, it's an absolute nightmare on e-filing. It takes you like 45 minutes just for a very, very simple trust to do. So we said, let's tackle the data files that's allowed to submit through HTTPS. So we literally pull in the portfolio of trusts here. You can have different people. Say, for example, it's a trust administrator with different accountants. We can have different submitting entities registering with SARS. And then you can set it, or it could be the trust administrator. So very flexible in terms of who can generate these files and submit it. What we've done as a first round, a lot of people haven't updated the, the financial side of it. They still have that manually on other systems. So we said, let's pull in the data, because of that data file, probably 95+% is literally biographical information, names, IDs, addresses, tax numbers, all sorts of things. So we pull that in. The big problem was, remember in the old days we said we did not have these red verification validation rules. So the system will quickly tell you, this trust, you know what, this is still outstanding, go and fix it. After it's fixed, it will become ready, it will become green to say that the data is complete. Now you can actually capture details. So it will tell you what is still required. Can you see all the rest for the beneficiaries? Here you can add the donors or the funders as well. On the right-hand side, you'll just go and see where yellow areas are required. So say, for example, you can see all this we pulled out of the system. So say, yes, we have distributed taxable amounts. Then it will open fields for me to go and add. So you can just put here what the distribution was. Yeah, we even have search function. Search functionality here. Now, if I just move this thing that blocks me here. Sorry. So we even have search functionality here to actually pick up the source codes for you, and then you go on the right hand side. You just click what has happened in terms of what you distributed. Did you distribute taxable amounts? Did you distribute capital, etc., etc. attributions, and then it will open up fields for you to complete. Okay, so very simple, and then you can just save it here, and then you can include multiple trusts here. Once you've completed them, you can tick multiple trusts, and then you can include them in a data file. It's in the format of SARS, and then you can literally see which data files were generated here, which trusts are included, and then you can amend the file or delete the file here as well. So very simple to do, and that's obviously in alignment with the underlying records as well. So for those guys who this year are going to tackle the accounting side, and we're still busy with some of the attribution rules, etc., it's going to be much easier for them, because then we pull in all the data. You can literally just review it, and then it's done. Okay, and then the last thing is just the on the trust side is the documents folder. So the documents folder is obviously for the life of the trust. Very simple to add a document. But now from personal documents, you know, if I upload my ID, I don't want the world to see it, because we have trustees, beneficiaries, accountants, all sorts of people viewing it. So if I give it a document owner, only myself and the trust administrator can see it. You can just drag, drop, you see, very easy. But this is your central repository of all your documents, normal folders. You can add your own folders, etc., etc. So that's just to give you a bit of a view in terms of how easy it is, and you know, to try and manage your risk as an accountable institution, you know, first of all, and then lastly, to make sure that we assist the trustees with those 3 fine killers, that we can manage it ongoing, not once a year when we do the trust tax return, etc., etc. Okay, now the last bit is to our questions.
Yes.
So yeah, let's throw some questions.
Yes, no, thanks very much, Fia. Obviously, always a lot with regards to trust, but you know, that's why we've got these sessions, you know, separately, so that at least we can have as many people being able to get knowledge, but also to get questions. But I think what we'll do again, Fia, as last time, again, for anything we can answer now, we can always just do a short document to distribute to everybody. First and foremost, obviously, remember there is that session that Fia is going to have with the FIC tomorrow. She has put it up on LinkedIn as well. We'll try and also distribute that link as well, so that at least we can have as many of you attending as possible. And obviously, secondly, is that please remember to always attend Compliance in Practice every third Thursday of every month. This Thursday, we've got the UIF and the Compensation Fund. I know you've got many questions for them, so there's still time to register. But going straight into the questions, Fia, apart from registrations, can you do amendments online? There's an individual here saying that I had headaches with updating a trust where signature looks confusingly similar to the markings that would make it indicate something is not filled or not filled out. So can you deal with anything at this point in time, or is it something that is going to be looked at in the future?
As we speak, when we tested the functionality 18 and 19, they had in March, they had trust amendments on, you remember on the right hand side, trust registration, then amendments. So yeah, it's not on yet, and I see we have the master's hand up, so let's hear from
let's get the Chief Master in. Welcome, Chief Master. Please go ahead.
Good morning. A pity we were not invited to the session, and I hear there are questions related to the master. So a bit of a surprise that I got this morning. However, just on the question, yes, the amendments will only come in in May. We are busy with the development of the amendments as well as the termination of trusts. So it will be possible. However, it is only at the end of May, when we go live nationally, that the amendment as well as the termination modules would then be available for trustees. Thank you, Walter.
No, thank you very much, Chief Master. Next time we'll make sure we invite you to these sessions as well. But you've got it hot off the press, end of May. There will be those aspects coming through. Sophia, obviously the Chief Master is here as well, is that with long overdue letters of authority, will there be now will you go back historically to try and see if we can dish them out as quickly as we can, or is it only for new letters of authority that will be requested via the system that will be dished out at this point in time?
Advocate Matibi, please take that one. I'm going to keep you on the spot now.
Can
You still there?
Can you hear us? I forget. I think it's on mute. Okay, all right. Now let's see. Maybe she's having a technical problem there,
Yeah.
so we will. We can always ask the question later and get
Yes.
that answer later as
Mhm.
well. So okay, there's another question. So if walk-in stop, how do you get the original to the master with confirmation of delivery? Do you perhaps know that one, Fia?
Okay, so walk-ins are stopped only for new registrations, new trust registrations as we speak. So there's no walk-ins. They don't need originals. The trustees must keep the originals. It's only there's a bond of security that you would physically have to still take it in.
Okay, all right. No, that's perfectly fine. No, thanks for that. How does the system handle a temporary reduction below the minimum, for example, death, which some trust deeds make provision for? If the documents are signed electronically, what is an original document? Does that make sense for you?
Just read it to me quickly
So
again.
how does the system handle a temporary reduction below the minimum, for example, death,
Yeah.
which some trust deeds make provision for? Secondly, if the documents are signed electronically, what is an original document?
Okay, so the first one is the minimum and maximum number of trustees. So your minimum number you would take from your trust deed. And yeah, I think we've seen a couple of scenarios. Normally, trustees say that the trustees can just take care of the just the administrative side of it. They can't really make decisions, etc. So they can just kind of keep the trust running. So it doesn't really allow you to drop below the sub minimum and to carry on making decisions. And I think that's the purpose of having that sub minimum number of trustees. That is at what point you can no longer make a decision as the board of trustees. So if it drops below a sub minimum number of trustees, then most trust deeds does not allow you to actually, make decisions. So yeah, and then most of the old trust deeds does not make provision for the words, a minimum and a maximum number of trustees. It's only, so kind of in the late 20, where are we now? Late 20, last part of 2010s that that started coming in. So you're going to have to read the provisions of the trustee clause together with, do you find the words of a minimum and a maximum number of trustees? And the original documents, the original documents you have to keep, as I say, the certified ID and the original documents in case the master wants to verify. So that's what the trustees have to keep themselves. They don't have to go and hand it in.
Yes, and just linked to the previous one, how do you deal with community trust with many beneficiaries? Fia, obviously this is a question that's very popular amongst the trust space about these trusts that have got so many beneficiaries. Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, so I think we probably back into classes, and that is something the master is working on on the platform, because it does not make provision for classes of beneficiaries. And then as you crystallize people out of classes, then you would actually, get their names. I know the master is working towards, once you receive benefits, which is again going to be a discussion for another day, because then you need to put them on beneficial ownership registers. I'm saying the legislation currently does not say it. So whether they're going to, amend the legislation while they implementing changes on the system, and changes in the system actually becomes a beneficial ownership register update, I think there's some discussion still required there.
Okay. No, thanks for that, Fia. And there's obviously other questions. We will look at them after this. But I just want to highlight one aspect. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety in the environment with the threats, as Malcolm puts it, in terms of fines, in terms of jail time, and all these things. And I think that's why, as SAICA, we've also got Fia on board. We reach out to the master's office. We've had joint sessions with them where we've presented together. We've had joint sessions with the FIC, we've got joint sessions with the CIPC, is to elevate some of these concerns in terms of compliance. So one, we're gonna help you be able to comply. So A, we give you as much technical assistance as we possibly can. B, we get such platforms so that you can learn as much as you can and hear from the horse's mouth as it is. But thirdly, we do engage these regulatory bodies. I think with what happened with FATF is that there were so many things that needed to happen so quickly, and we are now going to at least get some time to breathe, reflect, and see what's worked and what has not worked, and we raise this particular issues. So Malcolm, just to say, you know, I fully understand these are issues that have been there for a very long time in terms of, you know, we're trying our best to comply, but obviously ultimately the ones who are trying to comply end up being the ones that are targeted, and the ones who are not complying at all go through the net. So we're gonna continue to fight and continue to have these sessions, and so I'm happy we have so many people coming through to this particular session, and happy that we also had the Chief Master making a guest appearance. We do appreciate it because it's part of what the Chief Master has said, to try our best to collaborate as best as possible. So as we did last year, where we presented together on her platform, we will make sure that we get a platform on our side as well where she can come through. But I don't want to extend this session beyond what we had, because obviously you need to go and make money out there as business people and the like. But to say thank you very much once again to FIA for making time to engage on this very critical topic. Even last time we were running out of time because there's so much to talk about on tax administration specifically, and today we're trying to show you obviously what's happening with regards to the changes happening in this space. We will have more sessions of this kind to make sure that, you know, the anxieties go down as much as possible, because we don't want to see anyone having jail time. We don't want to see anyone getting fined. We want everyone to comply, but also want to make sure that there's ease of compliance. But on that note, thank you very much. Have a lovely day, and hope to see you on Thursday for the compliance in practice, but also see you tomorrow for the fixed session with FIA. Have a lovely day. Goodbye.